Shalom, all my beautiful people out there. I like to say a mighty hearty shalom, shalom to everyone out there. I'd like to give honor, first of all, to the Most High, who's ahead of my life, who keeps me in the knowledge, keeps me motivated to do the things, do His work, as well as to Christ for making the sacrifice and gathering us all like chicks up under His wings, those Christians. And, just pray that His dominion be a dominion like it was prophesied. So, hopefully today will be a little bit edifying. And if you have not, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is AOSD Chandler, Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler, Chandler. I have the full preterist view. All things have been fulfilled. But I also like going inside of Hebraic literature, like Josephus, some non-canonical books, even some of the Gnostic books sometimes, just to pull a little bit more of that mindset that some of them had back then. The Bible, of course. I like the Septuagint as well as the Apocrypha. So today we're going to be in the Apocrypha because when I was going through the Wisdom of Solomon, I came across some good information that I don't believe a lot of people have discussed, and you find it throughout the whole scripture. And I think it was like the first commandment. So let's go through it and let's see what we can pull from this. So Wisdom of Solomon book, or chapter 14. Let me show you what I came across. I want to start at verse, let's see here, 6. Let's start at verse 6. For in the old time also, when the proud giants perished, we know that this is during the flood, the hope of the world, governed by the hand, escaped in a weak vessel, which was the ark, and left to all ages a seed of generation. We know that would be pretty much the sons of Noah in order for all of us to be here today. I believe that's what that is. For blessed is the wood whereby righteousness cometh. Verse 8. But that which is made with hands is cursed as well it. As he that made it, because he made it, and it, because being corrupt. Let me read that again. But that which is made with hands is cursed, as well it, as he that made it. He, because he made it, and it, because being corruptible, it was called God. For the ungodly and his ungodliness are both alike hateful unto God. So God don't like ungodly or ungodliness. So y'all remember that, people that's out there spreading that hate. For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. Therefore, even unto the idols of the Gentiles shall there be a visitation. So now remember, the Gentiles did not have the law. But look, they still was going to have to get some of that judgment. The judgment was still coming to them too. Let's see why. Therefore, even upon the idols of the Gentiles, who, once again, they was not in the Mosaic covenant. They did not receive the Torah. They did not receive any law that says don't worship any type of idols. But the Most High was going to visit them too for creating these idols. Shall there be a visitation, because, this is why, in the creature of God they are become an abomination and stumbling blocks to the souls of men, and a snare to the feet of the unwise. So once these idols was creating stumbling blocks for the people in the world. And this is what he called an abomination, setting a God, giving these no gods life, bringing these no gods to life, giving them speech and worshiping them, even though they're no gods and they was created by hands. So this is where the abominations come in. So once you start talking about the abomination of desolation and all this stuff, some of that could be pulled from these type of abominations. But anyway, verse 12. For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them the corruption of life. So we see that idols, when they start creating idols, all the way in Genesis, when they start creating idols, that's when spiritual fornication was born, and the corruption of life. People start going through corruption, dealing with these idols, not worshiping the Most High, but having these idols that they created. This was the beginning of the downfall of all. Verse 13. For neither were they from the beginning. Those idols did not exist in the beginning. Neither shall they be forever. For by the vainglory of men they enter into the world. So the vainglory mankind created these idols and put these idols in the world. And therefore shall they come shortly to an end. The Father is a jealous God. He didn't care if the Gentiles had the Torah or not. He wasn't playing with that idol stuff. No idolatry, no idol worship. It shows you the character, the nature of the Most High. The Israelites got the law because he wanted them to be priests unto him, to take it that priesthood or that priestly duty to the world. But the Gentiles didn't get none of that, and they still was going to get visited because of this idol worship, these abominations. And let's read verse 15. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, that means their child died before time, before the father, when he hath made an image of his child, soon taken away, now honored him as a god. So when he makes an image of his child, he is honoring him as a god. So I know y'all see all of these people with these shirts where these people die at, and all these images are on the shirts. All these people are carrying around these rest in peace, this and that, with the image on it. This is what the Most High was talking about. This is what they was doing back then. He hath made an image of his child, soon taken away, now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. So I know y'all done seen the releasing of the balloons while having the person who passed away shirt on. See, these are ceremonies to the dead. The Most High wasn't playing that. Verse 16. Thus, in process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law. So this started off as supposed to be harmless, right? Just because somebody was bereaving, just because somebody was going through it, right? But then we see that eventually it turned to a custom and then a law, because this is what wicked men do. Let's see. Of an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law, and graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings. So now the kings start making, and this just isn't the Gentiles. All this was going on within the Israelite community also. See, this is what the problem was. It started off with idols, them creating idols, and look what it has branched into. It started off as something that people was just doing, until all of a sudden it became a law, an enforced law to practice idolatry. Verse 17, whom men could not honor in presence, because they dwelt far off. They took the counterfeit of his visage from afar, and made an express image of a king, whom they honored to the end that by this their forwardness they might flatter him that was absent, as if he were present. So now it went from them creating idols into them creating these idols dealing with the dead, to now them creating these idols dealing with the dead and dealing with the kings. So now the kings made it a commandment. They made it a law that you had to create idols, all kind of idols, and worship them. It didn't matter what the graven images was. It could have been for dead people or for kings. Regardless, it was all idol worship. And remember, we read up here, this was the beginning of spiritual fornication and the corruption of life, these idols. Verse 18, also the singular diligence of the artificer did help to set forward the ignorant to more superstition. So now, here's more superstition coming with this idolatry. For he, peradventure, willing to please one in authority, forced all his skill to make the resemblance of the best fashion. So now they was getting into detail with these images. Now you see these images all throughout Hollywood, all throughout all of the cities still today, when people have these animals carved out and etc. You see them on a totem pole. You just see it all. The Buddha man in your houses and all that stuff. You see all this idolatry still. And so the multitude, allured by the grace of the work, how detailed it was, took him now for a God, which a little before was but honored as a man. So now the skill is so good that now that they're honoring the product, the fashion, as a god instead of just a man. You see how it started off like it's like the snowball effect. It started off real small like the rock, and as it picked up inertia, as it picked up speed, the snow ball gets bigger and bigger until eventually it forms into like a mountain of snow or an avalanche, or however you want to do it. Shalom, brother Caleb. Shalom. So now I'm going over the idolatry. So now verse 21, and this was an occasion to deceive the world, for men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name. Hope I said that right. Incommunicable name, which was they was giving these stones and stocks the name of the Most High. That's what was going on. That's why he was warning them about worshiping the wood and stone. Moreover, this was not enough for them, but they erred in the knowledge of God. But whereas they lived in the great war of ignorance, those so great plagues called they peace. So now the author of the Wisdom of Solomon is calling all of this time where they start worshiping men as gods and all this idolatry and stuff. He called it a war of ignorance, because they are leaving from the knowledge of the Most High. So the response from the Most High was to take their peace away from them. Verse 23, he gave them over to their deceit. For which thou slew their children and sacrifices, or use secret ceremonies, or made revelings of strange rites. Now look what else happened. It started off as them creating the abominations, right? Them creating the idolatry, them making figures out of wood and stone. And look what it has branched into. It started off from that to them honoring the dead with it, to them making images of the kings, to them start worshiping them as gods, to them now they're sacrificing their kids. And now look what else just happened. Now they going to these strange ceremonies and rites. Verse 24. They kept neither lives nor marriages any longer undefiled, but either one slew another treacherously or grieved him by adultery. So now they start sleeping around with each other's wives and start robbing, killing, pillaging, all of this stuff due to the idolatry. You see why the Most High was totally against idolatry from the beginning? So, verse 25, so that there reign in all men without exception blood, manslaughter, theft, and dissimulation, corruption, unfaithfulness, tumults, perjury, disquieting of good men, forgetfulness of good turns, defiling of souls, changing of kind, is homosexuality, disorder in marriages, adultery, and shameless uncleanliness. For the worshiping of idols, not to be named, is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. All evil. See, a lot of people don't know what Israel was doing, but we're going to go into that. But all evil starts off with the worshiping of idols. You see, as they started off worshiping idols, they got further and further away from the Most High until eventually they start sacrificing their kids, start sleeping around, committing adultery, start homosexuality, not worrying about being clean no more, theft, perjury. All of this occurred from the worshiping of idols. Verse 28, for either they are mad when they be merry, or prophesy lies, or live unjustly, or else lightly forswear themselves. Verse 29, for insomuch, and I'm saying hey to everybody out there, thank y'all for listening. Shalom to everybody out there. We're going over the wisdom of Solomon and what happened when the idols, when idolatry came in, and why the Most High was really against idolatry from the beginning. Regardless what covenant, regardless what nationality or people, he was against idolatry. For either they for insomuch, verse 29, for insomuch as their trust is in idols, which have no life, though they swear falsely, yet they look not to be hurt. Howbeit, for both causes shall they be justly punished, both because they thought not well of God, giving heed unto idols, and also unjustly swore in deceit, despising holiness. For it is not the power of them by whom they swear, but it is the just vengeance of sinners that punish always the offense of the ungodly. So he used the sinners to punish the ungodly. But the main point here, what y'all need to know once you're reading the Bible, once you're going through the Bible, the worshiping of idols, which was not supposed to be occurred in the beginning, is the cause and the end of all evil. Everything that happened to Israel happened because of the worshiping of idols. Everything that happened to every nation on the planet, the Sodomites and all of them, these unrighteous nations, was due to the worshiping of idols, which created the snowball effect to make them do all of that other unnecessary stuff, because they started giving in to their own deceit, making it seem like that those idols wanted them to do that. They didn't have no instructions, no cutoff. So now, let's see how idolatry was further on. So now, we have the wisdom of Solomon. So now let's go to Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel. And if I have enough time to finish this, because they're working on my truck. But let's go to Ezekiel, dealing with the abominations of desolation. Ezekiel chapter 8. And if you have it in your Bible, you can read along. 8:1. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, and in the 5th day of the month, as I said in mine house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of the Lord God fell there upon me. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness in the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward fire. So from his loins downward was fire, and from his loins even upward, as the appearance of brightness, and as the color of amber. So it looked like amber. It was very bright. So from his loins down, it was fire. From his loins up, brightness. This is what glory looks like, y'all. This is what you can expect to see when you cross over planes to talk to the Most High in Christ. Verse 3, and he put forth the form of an hand, because it looks sort of like a hand. It took me by a lock of mine head. Took him by his head, the top of his head, the lock of his head, that would be on the top. This is why the Egyptians were so what's the word I'm looking for? They was infatuated or obsessed with the third eye. This sounds like some of that stuff. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me into the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looked toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoked to jealousy. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Then said he unto me, Son of man, lift up thine eyes the way toward the north. So I lifted up mine eyes the way toward the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy in the entry. So in the entry of the altar, in the seat, there was an idol, the image of jealousy. Verse 6. He said furthermore unto me, Son of man, seest thou what they do? Even the great abominations that the house of Israel committed here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary? But turn thee yet again and see, and thou shalt see greater abominations. So he started off showing Ezekiel what those people, what those priests, what those inhabitants of Israel was doing in the sanctuary. And he was like, this is my sanctuary. Look at what they're doing. Look at these abominations. But let's see more. Verse 7, and he brought me to the door of the court. This is all temple things. This is all dealing with the temple. This is all dealing with the temple. So now, And he brought me to the door of the court, and when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. Then said he unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I digged in the wall, behold, a door. It's like a secret door. And he said unto me, Go in, and behold, the wicked abominations that they do here. So now they was doing, they had a image of jealousy. They had a abomination right there in the entrance of the sanctuary. So now let's see what they got going on in the courts. Verse 10. So I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things and abominable beast and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round about. Now I don't know if y'all knew the some of the stipulations, but once they was creating the temple in the beginning, as well as when they did the tabernacle, they was not allowed to make images of anything living. They had like beast wise, and they had like images of plants and different shapes, but they could not have any images of anything, any beast living. And this is what's going on. This is what they have created in the courts around the temple. It's all on the wall. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients, of the elders of the house of Israel. And in the midst of them stood Jezaniah, the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand. This is priest stuff. The priests have the censers. These ain't regular people. These are the priests with the censers. And he called out a name that obviously Ezekiel knew. Ezekiel knew this guy. With every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. So now let's go to Numbers 11, 16, 24, and 25. Numbers 11, 16, 24, and 25. Just to make a correlation. Numbers 11, 16. 24 and 25. Let's see if we can get it in here. And the Lord said unto Moses, Gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be elders of the people and officers over them, and bring them into the tabernacle of the congregation, that they may stand there with thee. You see, these men were standing in the tabernacle with Moses. They had great power. This would be, and they was elders. Let's read 20. What is it? 24 and 25. And Moses went out and told the people the words of the Lord, and gathered the 70 men of the elders of the people, and set them round about the tabernacle. And the Lord came down in a cloud, and spake unto him, and took of the spirit that was upon him, and gave it unto the 70 elders. And it came to pass that when the spirit rested upon them, they prophesied and did not cease. So you see the importance of these 70 elders. They got in the beginning, they got the Holy Spirit just like Moses had. So these 70 elders, these were some of the leaders inside of Israel. So look at what these 70 elders are doing right now. Verse 12, and said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery, in the mind, for they say, the Lord seeth us not. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. The Lord see us not. He don't see what we're thinking. He don't see what we're doing. He has forsaken the earth. Verse 13. He said also unto me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. So look at all this abomination that's going on. This is what Israel should have knew better. But this is what they was doing. They had abominations in the sanctuary. They had them in the door of the court. They had them in. They was doing them mentally. They was doing them. They had them on the walls of the court. Now you have the women who's at the door of the gates to go inside of the temple. Now we got women at the gate of this supposed to be holy temple weeping for Tammuz. Now, if you don't know who Tammuz is, he was the son, I believe, I hope I'm getting this right. You can check it out. But I believe he was the son of Nimrod. So supposedly his mama, Semiramis, after Nimrod died, supposedly she got impregnated by some type of being. She got impregnated by the sun. So I think, though, the story is Nimrod died and he turned into like the sun or the sun god, and he came down and slept with Semiramis, and it brought forth Tammuz. So Tammuz is supposed to be a virgin birth because she did not have sex with a man. She had sex with a god or something like that. Anyway, they was weeping for Tammuz. And Semiramis is also the queen of heaven, which is spoken of in the Bible. And once you go through more culture, you realize that Semiramis is also Shatis, and the Shatis was translated into the goddess over Easter, dealing with the bunny rabbits and them wearing their light clothes and the sunrise service, dealing with Nimrod. So all of the stuff dealing with Easter, the celebration, the pagan celebration, is about the mother of Tammuz. So they're weeping for Tammuz right here. Verse 15. Then said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. So Israel was tripping. Israel was going through a whole lot of stuff. But what do we read in Wisdom of Solomon? Once you start doing idolatry, once you get into idol worship, all things go to hell. All things go to hell once you get into idolatry worship. It's that snowball effect going downhill. It's the beginning of all evils, and we see it right here. It's getting worse and worse. Verse 16, and he brought me into the inner court. So they was at the outer court, and then they was at the gates. They was in the sanctuary. So now he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east. So they inside of the temple, inside of the inner court. They're at the door of the temple. They're between the porch and the altar, and they're doing sun worship. So you got they worshiping Nimrod on the inside, and then you got the ladies at the gate of the north weeping for Nimrod's son Tammuz. Look at all this stuff going on, and these are Israelites doing all this. Verse 17, then said he unto me, hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, They put the branch to their nose. Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them. He said, is it a light thing for Israel to be doing all these abominations, knowing all of the things I have did for them? And we all know the commandments like they knew, but we know that this all came from idolatry. This is what this is coming from. All of these abominations, right? So this is how the Most High respond to the abominations, right? Let's see here. Verse 2. Ezekiel 9 verse 2. And behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lieth toward the north. Sorry, y'all. Readjust myself. Toward the north, and every man a slaughter weapon in his hand. And one man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side. And they went in and stood beside the brazen altar. And the glory of the God of Israel was gone up from the cherub, whereupon he was, to the threshold of the house, and he called to the man clothed with linen, which had a writer's inkhorn by his side. Verse 4. And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that have been done in the midst thereof. So we read all the abominations that Israel was doing. So now the Most High is responding. He's telling these people, it's in vision form, he's telling them, hey, go put a mark on the righteous people's forehead that cry for these abominations. And to the others he said in mine hearing, Go ye after him through the city and smite. Let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but not come near any man upon whom is the mark. And begin at my sanctuary, because we read in Ezekiel 8, this is where the abominations was at, all around about. Then they begin at the ancient men which were before the house. This will be the 70. And he said unto them, Defile the house, and fill the courts with the slain. So the dead bodies killing inside the temple, that blood, that's called defiling the house. That's a defilement of the house. And fill the courts with the slain. Go ye forth. And they went forth and slew in the city. And it came to pass, while they were slaying them, and I was left, that I fell upon my face and cried and said, O Lord God, wilt thou destroy all the residue of Israel, and thou pouring out thy fury upon Jerusalem? Then said he unto me, The iniquity of the house of Israel and Judah is exceeding great, and the land is full of blood, and the city full of perverseness. For they say, The Lord hath forsaken the earth, the Lord seeth not. And as for me also, mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. But I will recompense their way upon their head. And behold, the man clothed with linen, which had the inkhorn by his side, reported the matter, saying, I have done as thou commandest me. And see what else we can go. I'm trying to see. And y'all can read the rest of it. But I want everybody to know that, and look, Ezekiel 8 and 1. Ezekiel was amongst those elders. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Where are you headed?
Back to Blue Springs.
Huh?
Back to Blue Springs.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, y'all. But these elders that he was amongst in the beginning are some of the ones that was doing the abominations. So hopefully we see that, idolatry, idol worship was the beginning of all of the corruption, all of the wickedness, all of the evilness that was on the earth. And we also see that these were called the abominations. And these were considered, at that time, these would have been considered the abominations that make desolate. We know the king Manasseh had abominations also. So, all of that. And we see the mark, and then him destroying everybody who don't have the mark. And we see the opposite happening in Revelation, dealing with that abomination. That abomination, everybody who had the mark of that abomination, which would have been Rome, they was destroyed, and the people that didn't have the mark, they was the one that was let go. So we see it's sort of like an opposite thing there, one piggybacking off the other. But the point is, Wisdom of Solomon, which I take as a Christian work. I wouldn't say that it's inspired, but I'll say it's a Christian work, and it helps you know the mind frame of the Christian Jew, and how, even though they was inside the new covenant, they still wasn't trying to do any idolatry, any idol worshiping. They were still adhering to the righteousness of not trying to upset the Father, and stressing what caused all of the wickedness in the beginning, which was idolatry. So, for my people out there, stay away from all idol worship as much as possible, so wisdom can have an influence over you, and so you can understand how to govern yourself better once wisdom is a part of you, and you can understand some of these scriptures better also. So hopefully we all understood the point of what I was trying to bring out. Once again, my YouTube channel, AOSD Chandler, Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. Thank you all for listening, and I'd like to say Aharli Shalom Shalom.